years to get to this stage. But prior to that, Victor Headley has always seen the vision to make this into a film, and this is a man that sold the original paperback out of his car, literally pulling up by Wrigley Road Market, opening his boot and saying, "Hey, you want to read this book?" And he always wanted to see this into a film. So the journey, the aspiration for the film has been a long time. I got involved in Walk Films about 4 years ago. Walk Films had the rights to the book maybe 2 years prior to that. And it's been just a really long journey, you know. This is a very culturally specific film, and essentially the climates have had to change, the sort of structure of filmmaking and budgets have all had to change while, you know, the narrative became mature, if you like, you know. I've seen maybe 14 versions of the script in its different iterations, and we've had 2 screenwriters, Brock and Brock and Martin Stellman, who wrote Babylon, by the way, for those of you who know what that is. And yeah, man, big film, big tune, big film. But, you know, just to give you a little perspective on the journey of the film, I came along as a new director. I came along with a lot of goodwill, which I'm very thankful for my country giving me that in terms of what I do as an artist. And that essentially got the wheels going. And, you know, I'm super proud of it. You know, I'm a perfectionist, so, you know, there's things I'm like, I could have changed that. But ultimately, too late now, right? But ultimately, so far the reaction has been such a joyous one in terms of it being, like I said to you at the beginning, a postcard homage to a time period where our country and our culture in our country exploded into what we are right now proud of. You look at this audience right now, it's a cultural mix, and, you know, essentially we're all celebrating a film that comes from that, you know.
I mean, for me, I'm of West Indian background, Jamaican culture. We just said backstage, and I was thinking, when I went to go and watch it for the first time, I was like, I hope it doesn't mess it up. So, I mean, for you, are you nervous? I mean, this is being broadcasted at 200 cinemas right now, with a lot of people, and as you said, a very diverse audience. Are you nervous?
Of course. Of course I'm nervous. Of course I am. You know, as an actor, I've managed to get away with performances in some shit films. So, am I allowed to say that?
I don't know. Is he allowed to swear?
Am I allowed? Sorry, edit that out.
It's
What
right.
I mean by that is that as an actor, you know, your performance is isolated oftentimes from the film, or it's a part of an ensemble. As a director, you own it. You know, from the rooter to the tutor, as they say in America, you own the whole thing. And so this position for me is very nerve-wracking. You know, people who know anything about me, I'm not afraid to try new things, and I'm not afraid of failure. But as a filmmaker, this is like my biggest moment, to be able to present to you a whole film, to be able to guide actors who are also talented and bring them. So I was definitely nervous. I was nervous also because, you know, Jamaican culture is a big, significant part of British Afro-Caribbean fusion, the biggest majority for a long time in our country. And to get it wrong would have been absolutely disrespectful. Not to mention not being West Indian myself, it would have been completely disrespectful to not be authentic, at least, you know.
And speaking about authentication, is that even a word?
No, it's not. But you know what? You know, I can't even say authentication.
Yeah, I just made it up. You know what I meant.
H at the beginning.
Yeah. Authenticity. During the whole process of Yardie, I can only imagine you were out there in Jamaica, and obviously it was very important to get sort of saturated by the culture. Talk to me about, when it came to your actors, how important that was, that they were representing. I can't even speak today.
All right, that's okay.
Representing.
Yes.
I may have had a drink. No, representing what the film is about.
I mean, I think it was really important to the actors. It was very important to us as filmmakers, my producers and I, that, like I said, to be authentic. But Amel Amin, let's give it up for Amel Amin, who plays D. You know, he's an actor that's had an incredible career. He kind of went to America as well. He did Kid Hood, he did The Maze Runner. He's done a plethora of different roles. And when I asked him to play this role, you know, the first thing he said, I'm half Jamaican. I want to do this for my family. I really want to do this for my culture. Stevie Graham, many people don't know, but Stevie Graham's dad is mixed race and his dad is Jamaican, half Jamaican. So Stevie Graham grew up in Manchester amongst the Afro-Caribbean community. And when I told him that I'd like him to play Rico, he cried. You know, I'm not joking, he wept and he said, listen man, I never, one of his most famous roles is playing a racist, and he never had a chance to ever sort of show his cultural heritage in a movie. And by the way, he comes on this film and smashes it, and the guy, it was so important to our actors that they got this right, every single one of them. To Duamara, who plays the African character Darkus. And I said to him, he said, boy, are you sure I should play it in an African accent? I said, yeah, man. I said, you're playing my dad? My dad was that one African guy that was with all the Yardie man them, that's him. And, but authenticity was definitely like a shared responsibility for all of us, across it actually, not just the actors, including the cinematography and the art direction as well.
And I have to say a special shout out to Chantal Jackson, who, for me, as a leading lady, and also a very, very strong black female in this film. It was, I think, in the time and the culture that we're in right now is really important. And the connection that those two had together, brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so thankful that you highlight her as well, because, the book is a very, male-dominated story, male-dominated characters. The female characters aren't particularly strong or properly represented.
Look, you're catching it. He's caught it.
It's catching it. And Chantel, this is her first film, she predominantly comes from a theatre background in Kingston. This is her first film. But even though she came in as a young actor, she highlighted to me what she loved about the script, and it was the strength of Chantel, of Yvonne, the strength of being this beacon for Dee's character. And that was like new, my mum loves this movie, and my mum's not particularly articulate about gender appropriation or anything like that, but she just loved Yvonne. She just loved that character because she could relate, coming to England in the early 70s and having to do 15 jobs while looking after a young Idris, you know what I mean? So Yvonne was very much a strong character for the show, and it was important because there's a lot of male characters in it, and so I needed the female characters to be strong. Miss Hammond is a strong character as well, although a small character. She kills it,
She reminds me so much of my granny.
Yeah.
That's what I think what this film does so well, is that you actually relate to these different individuals, and they are standalone characters, but they're very together, they're very powerful.
Right.
Even if you don't come from a West African background or a West Indian background, or even can relate to that culture, I feel like the warmth through the dialogue and the way that they portray it is perfect.
You feel like the actors and the characters are in their moment.
Yeah.
The idea was to needle drop the audience into a time period, and so that meant that the actors really had to believe what they were saying. Even though none of the actors were born in that time period. It was a bit embarrassing. But, me that was, helped them through that.
You just touched on the book there before, and I don't know if anyone has read the book, but it's very different to, I think if you read the book, you're expecting to maybe not have the warmth or the you don't really like Dre, basically, D, basically. You don't like him. But when you watch the film, you are so drawn to that character, and the love that you have for him is completely different. Was it something that you wanted to do? Did you want to turn the book sort of, not on its head, but take a different aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, I was torn. And I'll be very transparent. When we tested the film, it tested higher with the females than it did the men. And generally, the men felt like it wasn't Badman enough. It wasn't Rude Boy enough. And that broke my heart, I was like, I really wanted to make Goodfellas. I really wanted to make Godfather. But at the same time, I realized that I think we've all seen that film. I think we've all seen that representation of a black man on screen. And I felt like if I make a film that touches on the violence, but doesn't embellish it, doesn't celebrate it in a way that makes it grotesque to watch, and actually leaves the audience thinking about the decision that Dee has to make. You know, at the end of the film, that's a controversial ending to some. They were like, really? He shot the guy? But the point is, you know, the whole journey was about which way will he go, as opposed to he's going to be violent. You know, that's like basically what the book was about. You know where he's going to go. And in the film, you know, the challenge for us and my vision of the film was to make that more human. You know, you meet a young boy at 11 years old who has to deal with trauma. How does that happen? What happens next? And I was very sort of conscious of, weirdly enough, you know, we're now sitting in a climate in England where we're seeing a massive rise of sort of young knife crime and escalation. I feel like I've been here before. Do you know what I mean? Like, I grew up as a young man where knife crime was a big issue. I grew up where Yardie versus Scotland Yard was a big, big thing. And now we're here again where London is seeing a lot of violence. So weirdly enough, the movie resonates in a few ways. And hopefully the younger audience that watch this movie might say to themselves, wow, interestingly enough, I went through a trauma, or something about my past has made me angry, and I can have two choices. Do I go left or do right? I didn't consciously make that film to make a message, and I'm not sitting there saying, hey, watch Yardie because of. But when I watch it now and I sort of sit at the climate that we're in, I go, wow, I hope that a younger audience could watch that. I hope that, you know, a 45-year-old man could take his 25-year-old son and say, watch this movie, man. Just watch this. This is where I come from. And what you're going through, it's not the first time this has been, you know, this is something that has been repetitive in this culture here, so.
I think the exploring trauma and mental health, especially in a young man in the film, is really, I'm going to say it's actually quite beautiful the way it's portrayed, especially, I don't know about you guys if you noticed it, one of my favourite parts of the film is at the end when his older brother is passing on into whether it's his path or wherever it may be, and the lighting. I noticed it, the red and the green and the yellow in the doorway.
Thank you.
I noticed it, and it was kind of like, that moment really kind of touched me, because as you say, you spent a lot of time on this film, and 9 Nights is something that, as a West Indian Jamaican person, that you really resonate. Mourning is a lot. Obviously that's a very sensitive subject, mourning and trauma and mental health. For you and for your actors, how important was that to kind of take your time with? What was the thought process into that?
The thought process, you know, the spirituality in the film is very much present, but again, I didn't feel the license with a book or a film called Yardie to then, you know, take the audience on a spiritual journey.
Right.
Obviously, I didn't feel the license to do that by calling my film Yardie. I could have called it The 9 Night. I could have called it that and amplified the spiritual. But what was apparent to us is that the film, you did not care for Dee unless you understood some of his spiritual upbringing. You did not care. And that was like a hard process for us to really, really draw out, because it's not dramatic, you know, it's specific, you know. As with religion in any type of medium, you can't ram it down anyone's throat. It's very specific, it's by choice. So what we tried to do was make it very visceral. The 9 Night becomes this almost surreal set of images and sound design and whatnot, so that the audience feel that, okay, when we do see Jerry Dredd's ghost, there is a reminder of the 9 Nights, and that reminder is a subtle reminder of the sort of path of spirituality, which, you know, Jerry Dredd says before he dies, you know, the wicked can't hide. So I was very conscious of trying to keep that alive, but without, you know, again, ramming it down the audience's throat, because I don't know, I'm not one for ramming down any opinions in anything that I try and do. I think it's important that you give the audience an opportunity to take their own choice in that, you know?
It's beautiful. I really like that end scene.
I appreciate that. That's pretty good.
So we've been asking people to get involved on Twitter. some questions for you. This is from Pitch Imperfect in London. How important are narratives such as the one told in Yardie for Black and Caribbean culture?
So I think, Pitch, hello. I think that the importance is, it's about, for me, it's about having something to look back on, I think that Yardie, what we've tried to make is a postcard, a book in the library that you can go back and reference. And the good thing about that is that if you have that reference, then you can